Ozzy, Doyle, and every son of a bitch that worked for him. They were all gonna be better off dead.
Hey guys, welcome back to Turtle TV, aka Enlightened Turtle. It's Kev here. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Graham Hancock and the situation that we find ourselves in now, where it feels like we're almost on the cusp of actually finding some really juicy information about our past. Now, I've been an avid believer in ancient civilizations that predate like Egyptians or Sumerian culture, things like that, for a very long time, since I was a child really. It didn't seem to make sense, when you ask yourself the question, or when you ask your parents or whoever, teacher in school, like, where did we come from? And you find out about like the Bible, and it's 6,000 years old, and the Great Flood, and then obviously you roll on a little bit older and you find out that like the Great Flood it's like an old wives' tale. It's an old tale for children really. Like, it's been getting told thousands of years, like across every culture. And yeah, I just seen that interview with Graham Hancock on the Joe Rogan show, where he talks about like possible cataclysmic events happening around 10,500 BC. I think they're talking about like possible asteroid impacts, meteor impacts, and obviously the melting of the ice caps, that meltwater pulse 1b or something. And it's fascinating, like I say, I mean, I cast my mind back and I think, like, I try and imagine where humanity came from, how it would have started. I was baptized as a child, as a Catholic, and raised as a Catholic. Not deeply religious, but I was raised as a Catholic. And I come to the point where, like, I've kind of got my own connection to God. I feel like I don't rely on scriptures or a man in cloth to tell me that what I'm doing is right and God is listening to me. It's 2018. I'm part of that new school of thinking, possibly, where we feel we don't need like these regulations around religion. Not even so much religion, but spirituality. We can find our own connections to a higher level. And of course, like I say, 2018, it's never been so many atheists on the planet as what there is today. But yeah, let's touch back on Graham Hancock and the things he was discussing and his ideology. If you aren't aware of Graham Hancock, by the way, I strongly recommend that you go and check him out. Randall Carlson is the other guy who was on the podcast with him, and yeah, they got into a debate with a guy from Skeptic magazine, Schaefer or Schiff or something like that his name was. And to be honest, all I could think to myself was, what a douchebag, because even though he was very smart and very articulate and he was representing the mainstream in this interview, when you put him next to someone like Graham Hancock, who's a seasoned expert, his whole life hasn't been based around ancient civilizations and research of this ilk. He was a reporter for the BBC for many years in Ethiopia, I believe, where he found stories about the Ark of the Covenant and piqued his interest and led them on this 25 year journey of exploration really. But yeah, you just got to see the vast difference in knowledge between someone who's defending a paradigm and someone who is looking to change the paradigm. Someone who's defending it, it's like in military terms, if you've got to defend a position, you fortify your position. But if you're attacking the position, you're thinking outside the box. You're thinking of as many ways as you can to overwhelm that position. Well, it's the same in this pseudo-archaeology field right now. People say, oh, like this guy goes on to say to Graham, like, oh yeah, you're looking for anomalies, and then you connect all these anomalies together that science can't explain and build your hypothesis around that. But in actual fact, all these anomalies that are left is because the mainstream can't explain it. End of it. So if they can't explain it, and then someone else comes along with an idea that this might connect to this thing over there, and then they have some I mean, let's be honest. This ancient culture talk, it's not set in stone, is it? I mean, Graham Hancock's not saying like this is what happened and these are the people, they lived here, blah blah blah. But he goes on to like mention something really interesting where you talk about Plato, and he mentions Atlantis and the 9,000 years before Solon, and which takes it to 10,500 BC, which is, like I mentioned before, meltwater pulse 1b. And just that little connection there for me is like, well, how did he know that? I mean, how did he know that? And what science and mainstream archaeology then respond to that is, oh, it's a coincidence. So it's okay for mainstream archaeology to put a tag on an anomaly that is very dismissive. But when someone comes along with finds an anomaly and has a detailed explanation about it and is actually able to bounce this information off other sources, mainstream archaeology shuts it down, because it's almost like, look, your ideas are getting too big for your boots. Boom, put the lid on it. And yeah, I was just so impressed getting to sit there and watch a man of Graham Hancock's experience and knowledge just put this guy back in his box. I mean, sitting there and he's talking about like the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Sphinx and the Sphinx enclosure, and the debating, they're going backwards and forwards and stuff. And this guy goes on to mention, like, say something about the enclosure and the dating of the Sphinx. And Graham Hancock rebuked it. He's like, no, I wasn't referring to the Sphinx, because there's been no carbon dating tests done on the Sphinx, only on the enclosure walls. And this guy's gone back towards. So Graham Hancock turns around and he says something like, oh, but surely, like, you've seen the Sphinx? And he goes, no. Graham Hancock's like, oh, but you've been to Giza, right? You know, says it in passing, really, as if it was mandatory for someone to be taught, which I suppose it should be. If someone's going to be this experienced on a topic, then, trying to put this information forward on this topic as if they're knowledgeable on the subject, then you think they would have at least done the groundwork and went and scoped it out for themselves. But he's saying, Graham Hancock turns around and says, so I'm sure you've been to Giza before, you know, the Giza Plateau. And again, this guy, head of Skeptic magazine's like, no, I haven't been there. And Graham Hancock jumps in, he's like, I've climbed the pyramid 5 times, and, you know, I've been here, and he starts mentioning Saqqara, Aswan, or whatever, and he starts talking about all these other locations in and around Egypt. And again, like I say, it was so good to watch, because it showed you that, you know, this paradigm that people are clinging onto of this ancient history is just crumbling, really. And these guys aren't even that knowledgeable on new school of science, new way of critical thinking, you know, integration between, because we're finding out more and more that, you know, our ancient past, we think of, like, you know, say Africans here, Asians there, Europeans there, you know, that kind of thing. But in actual fact, even though some of the evidence is superficial, there's good evidence coming out the ground now that, you know, humans are a lot more integrated. They were a lot more adventurous in terms of seafaring cultures and things like that. And again, like I say, these scientists who were defending these positions, like, again, to touch on something back in that video, the Joe Rogan podcast, they mentioned Clovis first, and how Clovis first is meant to have been when humans came across the land bridge and they were the first populations into North America, blah blah blah. But it's now you're finding, like, the certain genetic coding in people from South America connected to people over the Pacific, and it's not in North America, as if to say there was a link where they must have came in through the south and then up north. And I mean, that's just one. I mean, I'm a bit vague on the details. I haven't really researched this video. I've just thought I'd just jump into it and basically just give a little view on my thoughts of where we're at in terms of this ancient civilization and blah blah blah. But yeah, like I say, Graham Hancock, though, what a guy. If you haven't seen that video with Joe Rogan, I strongly suggest you go and check it out. And yeah, peace.